The classroom fell silent. A boy's notebook dropped to the floor, its pages fluttering like broken wings. And then, the teacher's voice cut through the air like a knife. "You'll never succeed. Boys like you don't end up anywhere but trouble." The words hung heavy, sinking into the air, into the boy's chest, into the hearts of every student watching. No one dared to breathe, because in that moment, a 16-year-old black boy named Malik wasn't just being scolded, he was being erased. But what the teacher didn't know was that fate had other plans, because the very next moment, the classroom door creaked open, and standing there was the dean of Harvard University. Malik Williams wasn't loud. He wasn't the class clown. He wasn't the troublemaker they accused him of being. He was quiet. Too quiet, some said. The kind of boy who carried a notebook like a shield, filled with sketches, ideas, and half-written poems nobody ever saw. He wasn't failing school, but he wasn't excelling either. Because every time Malik tried to raise his hand, every time he tried to speak, that same teacher, Mrs. Whitfield, found a way to cut him down. "That's not the answer. You're wasting our time. You think Harvard cares about kids like you?" The words piled up day after day, like bricks sealing off a future he couldn't reach. And slowly Malik stopped trying, stopped answering, stopped believing. But here's the truth nobody in that classroom saw. At night, when the world grew quiet, Malik lit a small desk lamp in the corner of his bedroom. His father worked late shifts. His mother, she wasn't around anymore. So Malik sat alone writing. His notebook was his escape, his rebellion, his survival. He wrote about the stares he felt walking down the street. He wrote about the whispers in the hallway. He wrote about the weight of being underestimated every single day. Those words became his power. But in class, that power stayed hidden. Mrs. Whitfield made sure of it. She had a way of smiling. Not the kind that welcomed you, but the kind that reminded you where you didn't belong. And Malik, he belonged, she decided, at the bottom. One morning, it all came crashing down. Mrs. Whitfield handed back a graded essay. In red ink, across the top, she wrote, barely passing, "This won't take you anywhere." Then she looked him in the eye. "You'll never succeed, Malik. Boys like you don't make it." The class went silent. Some students smirked. Some looked away. No one spoke. And Malik, he clenched his fists under the desk, staring at the notebook hidden in his backpack. Every word he had written, every dream he carried, reduced to nothing in front of 30 witnesses. That's when it happened. The door opened. A tall man in a dark suit stepped in. Sharp jawline, polished shoes, eyes that saw everything. The room shifted. Students straightened up. Even Mrs. Whitfield adjusted her blazer. Because this wasn't just any visitor. This was Dr. Robert Gaines, the dean of Harvard University. He had come to observe unannounced. But the timing? It couldn't have been more perfect. Dr. Gaines scanned the room. His eyes landed on Malik. Something about the boy's silence, the way his jaw tightened, caught his attention. And then, he asked the question no one expected. Who here has something worth sharing? A thought, a line, a truth on paper. The class froze. No one spoke, until Mrs. Whitfield smirked and said, "Certainly not Malik. He's not the type." But Dr. Gaines turned directly to him. "What about you, young man? What's in your notebook?" The room spun. Every eye turned toward Malik. He hesitated. His throat tightened. Mrs. Whitfield whispered just loud enough, "Don't embarrass yourself." But Dr. Gaines waited. So Malik reached slowly into his backpack, pulled out the notebook, and opened it. His voice shook at first, but the words were undeniable. He read a poem about walking home under streetlights, about shadows that followed him longer than the day, about fighting battles no one else could see. And when he finished, the room was silent again. But this time, it wasn't mockery. It was awe. Dr. Gaines leaned forward. "That," he said, "is the voice of resilience. That's the voice of a future leader." Mrs. Whitfield's face hardened. Color drained from her cheeks. She tried to laugh it off. "It's just a silly poem. Nothing academic. Nothing serious." But Dr. Gaines wasn't smiling. He turned to her, his voice sharp. "Do you know how many leaders, how many scholars, how many innovators start with a voice just like his? Do you know how many have been silenced by teachers who couldn't see past their own bias?" The air cracked like thunder. And for the first time, Mrs. Whitfield was silent. Malik's classmates stared at him differently now. Not as the quiet boy in the back, but as someone they had overlooked. The bell rang, but no one moved. Dr. Gaines placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "I want you to keep writing," he said. "Harvard needs voices like yours." The room gasped. An invitation, a promise, a door opening where none existed before? But just as hope filled the air, Mrs. Whitfield's voice cut through again. Her smile returned. Sharp, cold. We'll see about that. And in her eyes burned something darker than before. Not just doubt, but vengeance. The story didn't end in that classroom. It was only beginning, because what Mrs. Whitfield planned next would test Malik in ways he never imagined. And so, viewers, remember this. When someone tells you you'll never succeed, when they laugh, when they doubt, when they try to erase you, understand this. Their words are limits they set for themselves, not for you. Your notebook, your dream, your voice. That's your weapon. That's your future. Malik's story isn't over, and neither is yours. The classroom fell silent. Malik had just read his words aloud, and the dean of Harvard praised him in front of everyone. For the first time, Malik felt seen. But then, that chilling smile returned on Mrs. Whitfield's face. "We'll see about that," she whispered. And in that moment, viewers, Malik had no idea that his real battle was only beginning. The next few days, everything changed. Classmates who once ignored Malik now whispered his name in the hallway. Some clapped him on the back. Some asked to read his notebook. For once, he wasn't invisible. But with that attention came something darker. Because Mrs. Whitfield, she wasn't finished. During lessons, she called on Malik more often, not to uplift him, but to corner him. "If you're so brilliant, Malik, answer this." When he stumbled, she smirked. When he hesitated, she raised an eyebrow. And slowly, the class started to shift again. Students began wondering, was Malik really special, or just lucky that day the dean walked in? Doubt crept back in, exactly as Mrs. Whitfield planned. One afternoon, Malik's father came home holding a letter. The school had reported Malik for lack of participation and disruptive behavior. Malik's father's voice cracked. "Son, is this true?" Malik's chest tightened. He shook his head. "No, Dad, it's not true." But the damage was done. Mrs. Whitfield had planted her seeds. And at school, she took it further. She accused Malik of plagiarizing one of his poems. She claimed his work was too advanced for a student like him, that it must have been copied. The principal called Malik into the office, demanded explanations. And once again, Malik sat alone, fighting battles no one else could see. But here's the thing about silence. It can break you, or it can build you. At night, Malik kept writing. He wrote about betrayal, about teachers who feared being wrong, about how power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, cuts, erases. And slowly, those words sharpened, like blades being forged in fire. But Malik didn't just write for himself anymore. He started leaving lines tucked into library books, on sticky notes in bathroom stalls, on scraps of paper in lockers. Anonymous poems began spreading through the school. Lines about pain, lines about hope, lines about fighting when the world says you're nothing. No one knew they were Malik's, but everyone felt them. Even teachers began whispering about the mysterious poet on campus. And Mrs. Whitfield, she sensed the truth. She knew it was him. One morning, she cornered Malik after class. Her voice was low, sharp. "I know it's you. You think these little poems will save you. They won't. Harvard isn't coming back. No one's coming back for you." Malik looked her in the eye. For the first time, he didn't shrink. "Maybe they don't need to. Maybe I'm already here." Her face froze, because in that moment, she saw it. The boy she tried to break was no longer bending. But Mrs. Whitfield wasn't done. Not yet. 2 weeks later, the school announced a poetry contest. The winner's piece would be published in the city newspaper. The prize, recognition, scholarship opportunities, a platform. Students buzzed with excitement. Malik's classmates pushed him to enter. But Mrs. Whitfield, she was put in charge of the judging panel. It was the perfect trap. Malik hesitated. He knew what she'd do. But his father looked him in the eye one night and said, "Son, if you've got something to say, don't let anyone steal your voice. Not her, not anyone." And so Malik entered. The auditorium filled with parents, teachers, and students. One by one, contestants took the stage. Malik sat in the back, heart pounding, notebook clutched tight. When his name was called, whispers spread. Some doubted, some cheered. He walked to the microphone. The lights blinded him, but he opened his notebook, and he read. This time, it wasn't just about shadows and silence. He spoke of classrooms that choke dreams, of teachers who confuse control with education, of boys who are told you'll never succeed. Yet rise anyway. His voice cracked. His hands shook, but every word hit like thunder. By the time he finished, the room was silent. Then applause erupted. Not polite applause, not forced, but roaring, unstoppable applause. Even the principal stood. Everyone except Mrs. Whitfield. After the assembly, the results were announced. 3rd place, 2nd place, and then 1st place went to another student. Gasps filled the room. Whispers spread like wildfire. How? Malik's was the best. Something's not right. But Mrs. Whitfield smiled, satisfied. She had done it. She had buried him again. Or so she thought. Because that very night, a video of Malik's performance hit social media. A student had recorded it. Within hours, it spread across the city. Within days, across the state. By the end of the week, Malik's poem had gone viral. The same words Mrs. Whitfield tried to bury were now echoing everywhere. Emails flooded the school. Parents demanded answers. Organizations reached out, asking to meet Malik. And then, an invitation arrived. Harvard wanted Malik to attend a summer program for young writers. Mrs. Whitfield couldn't stop it. She couldn't erase it, because Malik's words had already escaped her grasp. But viewers, this story doesn't end in triumph. Because power doesn't surrender quietly. And Mrs. Whitfield? She still had one move left. The night before Malik left for the program, he found an envelope slipped under his front door. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No signature, no name, just 6 words written in red ink. Don't forget who controls the grades. Malik froze, because he recognized the handwriting. Mrs. Whitfield wasn't finished. She couldn't silence his voice anymore, but she could still choke his future. And so viewers, Malik stood at a crossroads. On one side, opportunity, recognition, a chance to rise. On the other, vengeance, sabotage, a teacher determined to crush him at any cost. The question now wasn't if Malik had a voice. The question was, would he survive long enough to use it? Because sometimes, your biggest enemy isn't the world outside. It's the one who teaches you inside the classroom. Stay tuned for part 3. And let this sink in, friends. The people who fear your potential the most are often the ones who pretend to guide you. When doors close, break through the window. When voices silence you, write louder. And when someone tells you you'll never succeed, understand this. Their fear is proof that you already have.